Welcome to Blue Talks.
Hi, I'm glad to be here today. 1 minute, please. Boosted. Water. Bring me some water, please. I'm thirsty. Thank you, buddy. Sit, please. Down. Thank you. Stay. Hey, guys, it's an honor to be here. I'd like to ask you guys 2 questions. And when you formulate or come up with an answer, please just raise your hand. How would you thank someone for saving your life? How would you do that? When you have an idea, please raise your hand. Hands, anybody? Well, let me ask you this one. There's a hand for you. How would you thank that someone if that someone were a dog? How would you thank a dog for saving your life? That's one reason I'm here today. You see, because my life at one time was very dark, bleak, and dismal. And I suffered, sit please, down, thank you, from codependency. And I found myself in friendships or relationships with addicts. And codependency kills. And my parents were alcoholic. And I've subsequently gone to the Al-Anon program, and they tell you that sometimes that the children of addicts subconsciously go looking for other addicts to put in their lives because that's what they've got a master's degree in, fixing and rescuing the wounded bird. And the sad part is that the addict, the alcoholic or the addict, they have the alcohol or the drugs to numb the pain. The person associated with the addict doesn't have that freedom. You take it on the nose. And I'm going to tell you that I lost 2 decades of my life from codependency that's almost beyond comprehension. One example, the addict in my home one night raged and broke out the windows in my home. I ran out the front door and I got a thud. He had thrown a tire iron at me that revolved through the air and landed and hit my back. Had it rotated another 90 degrees, it probably would have stabbed me. And I cannot tell you that I would not have welcomed that ill-fated freedom. Life was bad. Later, I sneaked back to my raised home, the log cabin, crawled underneath it in the mud puddles, and got eaten by mosquitoes all night. In the morning, I emerged, hypervigilant, called a friend who came and picked me up. And you know, the addict never remembered what happened that night. And to say that was an isolated incident would be an absolute mistruth. Life was not worth living. And then one day I got this crazy idea, maybe if I put a puppy in the addict's life, maybe Mother Nature could do what I just couldn't do and fix that wounded bird. How foolish was that? But you know, when you're involved with an addict, you become sicker than the addict themselves. And I am walking testimony from A to Z for that. Well, before long, the puppy started taking the abuse. And then I learned the puppy was destined to be traded for crack. I couldn't let that happen, and I was ready to give up on life. I bought a camper. I took the puppy. I went out west, exited stage left. I left my family. I left my friends. I left my business behind and isolated. And you know what? I resented that damn puppy because I couldn't get a hotel room because I had a damn dog. Every time I walked him, oh, what a cute puppy. Oh, get out of my face. The puppy was always happy and I was always miserable. And I ended up in a little town of Ajo, Arizona, just north of the border in Mexico. I was in my camper one day and the camper fell on my leg and I had a blood clot and I couldn't bend it. And I went into the camper and I kicked my shoes off, but I couldn't get to my sock. Well, the puppy came running and I shooed it away. But you know what he did? He grabbed my sock. Bring me my sock, darn it. And you know what he did? He brought me my sock. Well, then later in the day, he was chewing on my tennis shoe. Stop that. You know what he did? He brought me my shoe. 3 nights later, I'd had enough. I had a gallon of vodka and I had a knife, and all went dark. And in the morning, I awakened to kids knocking at the camper door. Mister, we have a dog. Can our dog play with your dog? Yeah, take the darn dog. And then 15 minutes later, I heard the most god-awful scream. Arr! The puppy was in pain. And I just knew he'd been hit by a car because everything in life was bad. And I opened that door looking to see the puppy dead in the street. But he was holding his paw. He hit her on the trailer hitch of a truck while playing with the other puppy. But the thing was, he was in pain now, and I was in pain. His was physical, mine was psychological, but we bonded. And I slept with that dog for 3 days in my arms. And when I woke up, I looked into his eyes and I said, you know what? I get it. I had a Helen Keller-like moment, an epiphany. That dog was pulling me back to healthy people. Ultimately, he broke those chains of codependency. And I looked him in the eyes and I said, you know what? I'm going to take one day out of every trip and share what you've done with the world. But I needed an education to do that. So I went to California to this thing, the Assistance Dog Institute. It was founded by Bonnie Bergen, invented service dogs. Most amazing educational experience of my life. I learned to train the dogs. I worked with disabled folks. It was absolutely amazing. My life instantly started to get a little better. So I took a cruise. I went to the Bahamas, and my dog Booster became an honorary Bahamian, okay? We went to churches and talked during Disability Week. The Embassy of the United States showed up. We were on television. That's Sheila Culmer, president of the Association for the Disabled Folks. And she said, you know, we'll never get a national disability law. Well, I figured my Booster could do it, and I owed it to him to try. We spent 8 years in the Bahamas. Even after he passed, they still ran full-page newspaper stories remembering Booster. We went to schools, and the teacher said we could use a facility dog like Booster in our school. I went back a year after they passed the law. The taxi driver wouldn't let the dog in. I said, that violates your law. I went into the police station, and the cop looked at me, get the dog out. Excuse me, officer, you have a national law. Did you hear what he said? He said, get the dog out, very menacingly. Third one chimed in, and I took my tail with the dog's tail, and we left. And I called Sheila. Sheila, you won't believe this. They just kicked us out of the police station. She called the assistant chief of police. They invited us to a conference that happened to be on the island 2 days later. And I explained I wasn't angry. I just wanted the opportunity to explain. But I said, people worry about getting attacked by a pack of dogs. I got attacked by a pack of police officers in violation of a national law. Come on, guys. You know what? They thanked me. And they insisted on taking our picture on the courthouse steps in the front. It was a wonderful thing. I bum rushed a plane one time with my dog Booster, and the captain came to me, we don't fly dogs in cabin. Well, you would kick a blind man out of your plane, Captain? No, but you're not blind. No, but I've got PTSD. There's times I can't walk. Well, I'll fly you, but send me some information so I can explain it. Shortly thereafter, Bahamas Air amended their operations manual to allow service dogs on all of their flights. I went back to Bergen University. Bonnie started a college, right? Association, you get an associate's, a master's, a bachelor's degree in canine life sciences, okay? I became one of our first master's graduates. My thesis for my graduation was the dog as a social lubricant. It was called Project Fidelity, to project fidelity between the United States and Cuba. Obama had opened it up for travel. What did I think? A dog maybe could do a better job of relations than a human, right? So I dressed my dog up, Booster, as John Lennon. Imagine all the people living as one together. I flew into Havana, Cuba, and that night on the grand piano was playing Imagine All the People. I thought, whoa, this is some scary stuff. The veterinarian at the airport had handed me his phone number for me to contact him, right? But don't tell anybody. The Cubans really were not allowed to interact with the tourists. So I met him at a park, and I'm sitting on this bench next to this guy that looks vaguely familiar. It's John Lennon. I was in John Lennon Park. It's like, my gosh, somebody is tracking me. When Fidel dedicated that park, that statue was under 8 feet of flowers. People from all over the world threw them at. I'm in John Lennon Park. Within weeks, I was on live television as an American under Fidel Castro's communist country of Cuba. Live radio, they gave us access to the classrooms. So my booster went in the classrooms. Those are the leaders of tomorrow. If that country is going to change, those are the people that are going to do it. They incorporated the canine love into their lives. We met all kinds of folks from all walks of life, even those that had a difficult time walking. It was an amazing journey. Years later, I read that Bangkok, Thailand was underwater. I had experienced the ravages of Hurricane Katrina. So Booster and I jumped on a plane, 26 hours, and we went to Bangkok. I didn't have anything set up in advance, but I called orphanages. And we visited one in the town of Hawn. It's a little different, maybe even a little more special than all the others, because all of the children had HIV. And then I reflected on my life. I put myself through what I went through. These children didn't have a choice. Maybe their parents had the disease or they acquired it. They were such heroes, so valiant. And yet I was such a wimp and wasted my life. I really had a choice at the time. They had no choice. And you know what? When I got home, I went to the post office and started crying. I mean, crying. The children sent drawings. We love Booster. For the record, those are the most valuable possessions in my life. We then went to the country of Mexico and lectured at the University of Mexico, UNAM, in Mexico City, and they took us to visit children that were disabled. This little boy, he whispered to his mom, "Mom, I want to pet the dog." But he was blind, and dogs can bite, and people fight dogs. And he reached out in darkness with bravery, but he pulled his hand back. Then he reached out again, and he pulled his hand back. Then he reached out a third time, and my Booster raised his head and connected with that hand. It was all I could do to maintain my composure. And then another mom said, "My son would like to see your dog too." He came up, he sat on the floor, and he squeezed my Booster like a piñata. My Booster had one eye. He had developed squamous cell carcinoma. University of Minnesota made a vaccine to fight it. University of Florida debulked the tumor out of his head, but he lost his right eye. The mother leaned over to me, "Senor, my son has just lost his right eye to cancer, just like your dog. He's bonding with your dog." It was all I could do to keep it together. And the ladies were so sweet. The buses came to take the children home, and they said, "Senor, please have some punch, have a snack." So I reached behind nonchalantly, and I grabbed the snack, and then I lost it. I mean, the floodgates opened, and those ladies probably thought I was on drugs, and they just hit the mark. How do you explain stuff like that, right? And when he had developed cancer, they debulked the tumor, and they brought him into the room at the University of Florida. And I'm looking up at the surgeon. He was from London, England. And I wanted to say thank you, and I couldn't do it. I just started crying, and I slipped out of the chair on the floor, and I mouthed, "Thank you." My Booster was more worried about me than I could have possibly been worried about him. He had a 3-inch hole in his head with stitches. He lost his hair from radiation, but he found remission. The University of Minnesota made the first of the world vaccine for squamous cell carcinoma. And because of that, he helped them get permission for federal approval, which today is known as immunotherapy. Well, little did I know that 10 years later, I would come home from Asia with 48 hours to live due to a herbicide sold in this country that's not allowed to be sold in many other countries. And they threw me on a table and they shot chemo into my spinal column because it travels to your brain. They figured I was so close to death that it had gotten into my brain. Well, I don't know. I mean, I was tired of living. I was tired of life. I mean, I didn't know if I wanted to go for it or not. They explained I would need 5 bags of chemotherapy every day for a week, 6 weeks all summer long. And they would have to drill a 3-inch hole in my head, put a tube through my brain and a box in my head, and I'd get 2 shots every week for 3 months. And even at that, there was a 75% chance that when the chemo hit the tumors and shrank it, it would tear a hole in my stomach and I would die of sepsis. If that didn't happen, 25% chance it was going to happen the second week. And when I thought about if I wanted to go through all that, I thought about my best friend, my booster. And he didn't have a choice. And I put him through it. I couldn't be a hypocrite and not do for me what I did for my dog. And so I downed the bags of chemo. I let him drill in the head. Still got that box, which will remain for life. And he saved my life a second time. And I got to tell you that I made him a promise to share him with the world because he had a talent and a gift, and it was time to give back. And I'd like to say that I kept my promise to my booster. I got an education from the most acclaimed university in the world, the only one of its kind, and the amazing Dr. Bonnie Bergen, who empowered me. And people laughed about getting a dog degree. And I'm like, today, if you Google me, you get 10 pages all over the world, from Cuba to Thailand to Mexico. It was the most amazing experience that a human life could have based upon the experience, the canine-human bond, my booster. The suit that I'm wearing today was made in India, and I gave the tailor a photo of my dog's head, and he made a block print. And he put it on the back of my jacket. And when I go to church, I even went to my niece's wedding wearing the jacket, and they probably thought I was an idiot. Who's this guy? You know, he's got the dog on his jacket. But you see, the point is, my booster still got my back. And he's still inside of me, and he still inspires me. And Bonnie Bergen recently sent me a text. Your and Booster's value to the world are inestimable. That meant the world to me. And guess what? In one of my classes, I read about cloning, and I sent an email to the one scientist in the world in Korea that was doing it. Never thought I'd get an answer. I got an invitation to go to Korea. So I went into a biotech, looking in a microscope as a 50-something-year-old man at a dog's egg with a needle extracting the DNA, a needle implanting the donor DNA. Took me to the operating room, and I watched the eggs go into the ovaries. And he said in 63 days, the puppies will be born. I wanted to clone my booster. He had about a year to go, but I didn't have $100,000 to clone my dog. Months later, I get an email. Professor Wang, he wants to help you. He knows your love of the dog. They did it at an amazing discount and enabled it, with someone's help, to happen. Today, I have Boosted and his twin brother Busted at home, and we continue going out in the world trying to make a difference in other people's lives, like the dog his father made in my life. So how do you thank a dog for saving your life? I'm still trying to answer that question, but that's why I'm at this talk today, and I'm very appreciative that you guys have showed up to hear what I have to say. And I've written a book that should be coming out in about 6 months, and there were so many stories just like the ones that I've shared with you. And I thank you very much for your time. You ready? Okay. You ready? Uh-oh. What is it? Okay, come on. Huh. Thank you, buddy.